Hello, my name is Ethan Garcia, and I'm doing my informative speech on the effects of video games on adolescents. I've been researching this study for the past month now. Let me get into it. To this day, there is an ongoing debate as to whether or not video games, specifically those of violent nature, have an effect on the behavior of adolescents or young children. Studies have proven time to time how impressionable the younger kids' minds can be, especially while they're growing up. The American Psychiatric Association published a policy statement in 2015 concluding that playing violent video games leads to more aggressive moods and behaviors and detracts from the player's feelings of empathy and sensitivity to aggression. Now, there is an entirely different side to it where um, they argue that the children and adolescents are not affected by the violence in video games, and that many studies are unsupportive of their stance. Ultimately, there's a vast amount of information to support both sides, whether you're in favor or not in favor of video games having aggressive effect on the youth. They're argued to have a direct effect on children and are often attributed to causing the development of aggressive behaviors in children over time. Studies have been conducted to prove the association between physical aggressive behaviors with video gameplay. The study has been watched for the past decade by the American Psychiatric Association and has shown relation to youth being desensitized and more accepting of violent behaviors. In addition, the video game chats are a source of aggressive behavior amongst players talking disrespectfully towards each other. In the gaming community, it's known as BMing or bad mannering, where one player will taunt the other over an online chat. This provokes a reaction out of them and creates frustration, and sometimes players are known to rage quit by leaving the lobby entirely. This can sometimes result in physical behavior like possibly punching a hole in a wall, or to an extreme, or like throwing a PS4 controller. A personal example for me is my younger brother, who's 16 and plays Fortnite every day and Call of Duty. And one time he took his PS4 controller and smashed it into his iPhone 6 and broke his phone. This was a perfect example to show how sometimes players get very into the game and their frustration can come out in that sort of outburst. These situations can provoke aggressive behavior, and it isn't helpful that these games are very addicting for kids. This is their main hobby and their main source of entertainment during childhood. The obsession with the variety of graphic games on the market are and can enhance aggressive behaviors throughout adolescence. Video games such as Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, Fortnite give exposure and desensitize guns and crimes for entertainment. Each individual game has an electronic software rating that is suggested to follow for different ages of kids. Some parents will follow this, and some parents aren't really aware of this, so they might not follow it, and it basically turns into them not keeping track of what video games their children are playing. These games can have themes like killing people or animals, use of drugs or alcohol, criminal behavior, disrespect for authority or law, violence toward women, racial, sexual, and gender stereotypes. Although it's just a game, seeing these things in a video game at a young age can affect their thought process to believe that it's okay. For example, a kid might play Call of Duty and hear a few curse words and then pick up on it and say it at the home. Also, it's because of the online environment from ages 9 to 35 years old that they have access to. These violent games cause a decrease in socially desirable behavior like pro-social behavior, empathy, and moral engagement. Since video games are played by 59% males and slowly transition into virtual reality, it would be expected that these statistics would increase due to the games being more realistic as time progresses. Being that it is one of the most popular forms of entertainment for youth, growing up playing them your whole childhood could have a plausible change on behavior. On the other hand, it is also argued that this problem is namely the fact that there is no irrefutable evidence proving that it leads to aggressive behavior. Much of it is small studies and statistics saying that it could have the potential effect, but there's no real hard evidence backing it up. These graphic video games can cause aggressive behavior or could be a different factor. Researchers debate that aggressive behaviors can stem from the sheer competitiveness of video games, specifically online. Majority of negative effects from video games are prone to disappear quickly, including when players become frustrated over it. So after a few minutes, the player might cool off, forget about it, and continue the game. And in other scenarios, maybe they don't forget about it and it dwells on them. But overall, it makes it seem less important and something that left their mind after a few minutes. Some research has false positives and negatives with non-reliable conclusions. In the end, both sides of the debate, whether violent video games affect aggressive behavior in kids, can be discussed still to this very day. The study has been continuing for about the past 2 decades, and no hard evidence has been leaning towards favoring one side or the other. Even though they have made much progress with understanding that aggressive behavior can be triggered by these video games, it doesn't necessarily instill it in the youth. And the question I have to ask you now is, do you think that there is some truth to the violent video games having an effect on kids, or do you think it's a more unbased concept? And thank you.